2 weeks ago, I was at Erica's birthday party on Sunday for dinner. David Clark's my uncle. And he gave us sort of he said, okay, we're going to have dinner, we're going to talk and mingle for about an hour. But at 7:30, we're going to go over this project in Haiti that and colleagues in the Utah Hospital Task Force are doing. He gives us like 20 or 30 minutes of all this incredible information. And, it dawned on me that I'm a member of this club, and we're very lucky to have David give us the latest, even journal entries as late as last night, on what is going on there. To give an intro of David Clark, David Clark joined the Intermountain Healthcare in November of 2001. He's the regional vice president and CEO for the Urban South region. He's responsible for the overall operations of the region, consisting of 3 hospitals and other related services. David graduated from BYU's Marriott School of Management with a BS degree in finance, and from Texas Tech University with an MBA in healthcare organization management. He's a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives. Clark is currently serving a 3-year voluntary term as a regent for the state of Utah and the American College of Healthcare Executives. He was a recipient of the Provo Orem Chamber of Commerce's 2009 Businessman of the Year Award, Utah Business Magazine's 2008 Healthcare Heroes Award, and he's on the board of United Way County as he's a chairman on the board of United Way of Utah County. David and his wife Dodie are the parents of 4 children. They reside here in Provo. Something else is that David was supposed to go to Haiti last week on an airplane. It got canceled because the government had restrictions and they had to cut some people, so at the last minute he wasn't able to go. It's actually the second time in his life this happened, because when he was a missionary in Fort Lauderdale for the LDS Church, at the time his mission included Jamaica and Haiti. He was an assistant to the president at the time. He was going to go over for some development meeting, and his flight was canceled then. So hopefully one of these times, he's 0 for 2 right now, but hopefully one day he'll actually make it there. David, before I turn the time to you, I'm just going to show this 2-minute video clip of the orphans that arrived in Salt Lake on Monday. That's what Haiti's like before the earthquake. Okay. Darn it, what's going on?
Exciting day for Haitian children coming to their new Utah home for the first time. A group arrived in Salt Lake around noon, and 2 more are getting in tonight.
Keep in mind that many of these families started the adoption process years ago. Nicole Gonzalez is live at the airport with this happy story for us. Nicole.
Christine, it's been a long trip for one family that just arrived here at Salt Lake International, but through their exhaustion, you can see their true happiness. Peter and Marilee Muslar have been waiting a long time for this moment, 2.5 years to be exact.
A lot of emotions, 4 trips down to Haiti, and just probably the biggest roller coaster we've ever been on.
It feels like a dream, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to just go back to normal life. After seeing nothing but destruction in Haiti, these kids will see a new life here in Utah. 2-year-old Jordan, 6-year-old Dejo, and 9-year-old Abby will head to Heber with their new parents and 4 new siblings. This is surreal. This is so wonderful. I mean, I can't believe we're here in Utah with our children, about to reunite them with the rest of our children at home.
Earlier today was a similar scene. parents started the adoption process long before the earthquake hit. It's been 5 years of waiting for some.
It's surreal. It's surreal to have them home finally.
These children are some of the 141 orphans rescued by the Utah Hospital Task Force. It took lots of work by U.S. senators, White House officials, and volunteers to gain clearance from the Haitian Prime Minister. But now they're home.
Just want to go home and take care of them and love them and have a normal life. I'm going to go home and see my other babies. I'm going to get to take all 9 of my kids under one roof for the first time.
The 3 who arrived tonight are the last from their orphanage, Hope for Little Angels for Haiti. A different group is coming in later tonight. We're going to have a photographer there, and you can see that tomorrow morning on KSL 5 News. Back to you.
Thank you, Nicole Gonzalez.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Thanks for that introduction a little earlier. I want to thank all of you for being here this afternoon. I've got about 25 minutes, is what I was told, to give a little presentation on what's going on over in Haiti right now from my perspective and the perspective of the group that I represent. And then I'm open for any questions that you might have of me. I want to really thank my 3 of my 4 children are here today. And because of that, they will each be getting an increase in their allowance this next week. So thank you all for being here. It's nice. And the rest are my relatives, so no, I'm just kidding. But it really is nice to have family support around. I have a great love for the people of Haiti. When I served in the Florida Fort Lauderdale mission back in 1980 to 82, I taught a number of Haitian families and individuals. And I grew to love them. They're very humble, very simple-minded, very just loving people. And they have great faith in the Lord. One of the most important things I can tell you today is to read the church news from last Sunday. If you read the church news from last Saturday, if you read that, you'll see the First Presidency message. You'll see I think some excellent reporting on what's really going on over there. I have a little bit different perspective. I'm going to talk a little bit about the perspective of the LDS Church, but I'm also going to talk a little bit, probably a little more focus on this organization that I represent, that Tyler referred to, the Utah Hospital Task Force for Haiti. We have a group that went over there last Thursday, a week ago today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the experiences of that group. I have a PowerPoint presentation here that, and what I think I'll do in the interest of time, I'm not even sure if this is set up yet, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the first 4 or 5 slides because they talk a lot, they give you a historical perspective of Haiti. And if you'd like a copy of this PowerPoint, I'll just email it to Tyler and he can get it to you. But it gives you a little bit of the history of Haiti and some of the hardships that they've endured over the years. And then it kind of segues right into the current situation and where we're going to go from here. Many of you are familiar with some of this. Some of what I'm going to tell you is right out of, you can get off CNN website, you can get out of the church news, and you can also get out of a recent Time magazine special, January 25th, that talks about the plight of the Haitians. But you can see there are just over 9 million people there. The average life expectancy for a Haitian is 61 years, and that's actually a little longer than what I expected. Do you know what it is here in the United States? It's 74. Females usually outlive males by 5 years, so it depends on the gender there, but it's anyway, so 77 and 72, something like that for females and male. But anyway, look at that per capita income, $480. That's $40 a month to get by on, just over $1 a day. So it's by far the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Here's some history for those of you who might be interested in this. And I'm going to move right on through this, so because of the interest of time. But what's interesting is there's just been a lot of turbulence for many, many years. There's been, even though Christopher Columbus was the first to identify it, and it has changed hands with different governments. They've had tyranny, they've had a lot of unrest, a lot of civil unrest. The United States even went over there for a while under the Monroe Doctrine and took over it for about 20 years, and then we withdrew in 1934. But they've had a lot of turbulence for decades in that country. You can see up to 1990, 20 years ago, Jean-Bertrand Aristide wins the country's first free elections. And then he was deposed less than 8 months later. Tens of thousands flee for Florida in small boats. So there's a lot of Haitians in South Florida. around Miami and Fort Lauderdale and Hialeah and Homestead and so forth. After the ruling military junta agrees to give up power, Bill Clinton sent 20,000 troops there back in 1984 and to try to maintain some sort of order and peace. But they really have been through a lot. And then, of course, we've had the natural disasters. Hurricanes back in 2005, just 5 years ago, then 2 years ago. So they've really been hit hard, one thing after another. It's completely unique to our hemisphere, as I'm sure you're already familiar with, because of its history and culture. There are other French Caribbean islands. By the way, I've got to take this call. This is my fourth child. Hey, Austin. No, I'm just kidding. He really is calling, but he'll have to call Mom. Just try to keep reins on all my kids. So it's very unique compared to all other countries. You just, by the way, how many of you have been to Haiti? Show of hands. Anybody here? Were you there on a mission or? Great. When did you go?
Oh, end of 03 to 05.
That's great. When you were there, do you remember approximately how many missionaries we had serving there?
When I first got there was about 120.
Uh-huh.
A lot less was in. We got evacuated twice.
In 2005, correct?
February of 2004
Yeah.
and June of 2005.
Okay, February of 04, June of 05. Okay, that's helpful to know. Do you speak French Creole?
I do.
Okay, that's wonderful. I might call upon you a little bit later, so stay awake. So, let me just get right into some of this, what's going on right now. By the way, this is what Bill Clinton said. He feels that Haitian immigrants, they do very well when they come to America or France or Canada. Okay, they adjust very well as they go to other countries. Some feel that given the right organization support, Haiti could become a self-sustaining and a very successful country. This might be an opportunity right now as we go through the rebuilding efforts, which will go on not for just months or years, but decades. What will be interesting will be to see how long it takes before the CNN cameras start shifting focus from Haiti to other contemporary issues throughout the country and throughout the world. But hopefully there will be a long and sustained development plan in place. We know that our church, the LDS Church, is committed to that. We want to see a long-term sustained effort, and I'm going to talk about that momentarily. What's sad is this quote from Michael Elliott in the Time magazine that came out last week. Tragedy is a way of visiting those who can bear it least. Haiti is the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, and they've just endured so much. Malnutrition, now this is before the earthquake hit. Malnutrition is widespread. Less than half the population had access to drinking water. So you can imagine how bad it is today. On January 12th, an earthquake hit 15 miles southwest of the capital, measuring 7.0 on the Richter scale. Were you right there in Port-au-Prince when you served?
Yeah.
So you have an idea where this is?
I do.
Okay. This is another quote. Richard Moore, who's a Haitian musician and a hotel manager in Port-au-Prince. Just about all the lights are out in Port-au-Prince. People still screaming, but the noise is dying as darkness sets in. The earthquake hit at 5 o'clock p.m., and so this went on for quite a while. They even heard a lot of the buildings continue to collapse throughout the night. It was incredibly scary. People had to get outside. They were fearful of a building collapse on top of them, and a lot of that happened. So now you see all the tent cities. And much of this you already know from watching CNN every night. The focus first has been on search and rescue and on meeting people's basic human needs of water and medical care and food. Now, I use the term "we" generally, very liberally. There are over 10,000 nonprofit organizations there right now that are providing relief, and I commend them. It took a long time, though, for some to start responding. The LDS Church was right there very quickly with the United Nations, with the Red Cross and others. So we continue to transport a lot of equipment and supplies. The military has done a very good job with logistics. In fact, I've been told from a couple of my friends who are over there right now that the military really has their act together. They've done very well as far as efficiency with getting the supplies to where they need to go. Another thing that I was told that I'll get into here momentarily is that despite some of the reports on CNN, the vast majority of the city is becoming calm. And the vast majority of the residents are receiving the necessary water and supplies in a timely manner. There are still bottlenecks, and those are the things that are being focused on in CNN and other news agencies. But the friends who are there right now say overall things are calming down. And I'll give you a few examples of that momentarily. But there are recent estimates, and this is just a few days ago, 200,000 dead and more than 1 million homeless. And that's out of a population of 9 million in all of Haiti. we've been very pivotal in our leadership of getting down there, and you've been following that as well, I'm sure. The UN swung into action very quickly, providing $10 million of immediate emergency relief, and then also the World Food Program has been there with food relief. But there are still problems, okay? The problems today, though, aren't as rampant as they were even a week ago or even 3 or 4 days ago. Every single day, the whole distribution system of getting water and food to those in need is improving. Hundreds of thousands of people are coming out of the devastation alive and are being cared for. The World Health Organization has intervened, and they're partnering with a lot of groups, including the one that I represent. So there are 10,000 non-governmental organizations right now, making it the highest number per capita in the world except for India. We now have a national vision. There are a lot of people coming together, lots of countries, Israel and France and Italy and the United States. Now, coordination is very important, as you can imagine, both within the UN and also among all the donor countries and the non-governmental aid groups. And there's been a lot of chaos there early on, but that's improving day by day. The LDS Church, as I mentioned, our response has been commendable. We've had 2 primary objectives, as you can read there: providing life-sustaining aid to those in need, and also to teach welfare principles. That's more of an intermediate. Right now, we're just taking care of who's hungry, who's dehydrated, who needs medical care. But it is important in the gospel that we teach correct principles, and a lot of that is taking place right now with the priesthood leaders over there. Some of you probably read the article in the Church News last Saturday about the 2 stake presidents who were highlighted. And they're spending a lot of time with their local priesthood leaders in those 9 church meeting houses talking about teaching correct principles. Whether you're LDS or not LDS, there's a lot of the church's influence doing a lot of good in those 9 meeting houses. And by the way, it doesn't matter, of course, I think this goes unsaid, what religion you are, what faith you have. Most of the churches, what I read, I haven't heard this from any of my friends over there, but 20 to 30% of the people who are camping out in tents in those 9 church meeting house grounds are LDS, 20 to 30%. The vast majority are not. But it's just a great opportunity for us to do Christian service. Bishops' offices are being used as patient exam rooms. There are people right now who are being operated on bishops' desks. I shouldn't say that right now. A week ago that was happening. I think by now they've got gurneys and they've got cots and so forth. But that's what happened with the early relief efforts with the first wave that went in. Church buildings, by the way, are from what I hear, that last bullet, while many homes and buildings were severely damaged or completely destroyed, the LDS meeting houses escaped relatively unscathed. That's a direct quote out of the Church News as well, and I didn't put the source there, and I should have. But that's really impressive. You think about the way that homes are built over here in the United States and many of the more advanced countries with rebar and much stricter building codes. And had they had those kinds of resources available and those kinds of building codes, we wouldn't have seen such widespread devastation. So we're going to be there for a long time, that we being the church. We're considering how to rebuild, how to help the members with employment, and how to provide additional medical support. I've been really impressed. As Tyler said in my introduction, I'm the Regional Vice President for Intermountain Healthcare. I've got about 750 to 800 physicians who are on the 3 medical staffs at Utah Valley Regional, Orem Community, and American Fork Hospitals. And I've been very impressed by here locally how many physicians are saying, I want to go, what can I do to help? Can you, Intermountain Healthcare, donate some supplies, some equipment? But there are a lot of people who are very willing to go over there. And what's interesting, too, is the unintended consequences. When you have somebody with a big, compassionate heart who wants to drop everything to go to Haiti, I think it's wonderful. I think about our 21 orthopedic surgeons in the community. Of the 21, there are a couple that are in Haiti right now. And, they've got their call rotations for taking trauma call and ER call and so forth. And when one leaves, the other partners need to, step it up and pick up more shifts and so forth. But you kind of think that through, whether it's a nurse or a doctor or a paramedic or even some of your return missionary buddies who are there right now doing the interpretations. They're leaving their jobs, their young families, and so forth. And I give the people who are there a lot of credit. I also give a lot of credit to those who signed up to go but weren't chosen to go with this task force because we were limited on resources. But you can see what the church has done to date as far as all the tents and the wheelchairs and so forth. 7 relief planes that have carried supplies and personnel. Bishop storehouses in southern Florida like Miami that were there right away and willing and able to provide resources. So it's been a very quick response by very seasoned members of the church who have had a lot of experience in business, logistics, and so forth. The Utah Hospital Task Force, this is kind of where I got in the picture. About 2 weeks ago, I was reading in the Desert Morning News, and I see this article, Plane to Carry Help, Return Missionaries. And I start reading about a gentleman named Stephen Studdert. And I'd heard about Stephen Studdert before, had never met him before, but I knew about him from work. My chief financial officer used to, they went to the same ward, and I've got a nephew who served in his mission when Steve Studdert was a mission president. He's been a mission president, a stake president a couple times. He's been an advisor to 3 United States presidents. He has a lot of experience. He has a lot of contacts nationally and internationally. So I met Steve Studdert, and I realized very quickly that this guy knew how to organize, he knew how to get things done. When I told him who I was, I let him know that I served as a mission there. I'd never been to Haiti, but I trained missionaries who had served there when I was a zone leader and assistant to the president. And I let him know of all the Haitians I taught in South Florida and those kinds of things that you heard about earlier. He said, absolutely, we have a place for you. We want you to come with us. And my talents were best used with recruiting doctors and nurses and that kind of thing. But as was mentioned, even though I was on the list to go, what was interesting was a week ago last night, there's a big group of people, I'd say roughly 350 to 400 people, who congregated at Noah's in South Jordan. We all came together. And this included, and by the way, to give a little more perspective, we had, it might say this in here, I don't remember. It doesn't, that's okay. But there are like 800 people who applied who wanted to go on this first plane. And a lot of those people returned missionaries who loved the Haitian people, and they wanted to do whatever they could to get over to Haiti. What was interesting, though, is we had to pare that list down from 800 people down to 160. So only 20% who applied were able to go, thought they were going to be able to go. We all congregated for this meeting at Noah's. A lot of spouses were there and kids. It was a very emotional night, as you can imagine, because many people thought they were leaving the very next morning at 8 a.m. Be at the airport at 5, leave at 8. That was the ideal. That was the dream. What we found out, though, once everybody showed up, we started working through logistics and the weight of the plane and so forth, is that we needed a lot more water, we needed a lot more medical supplies and so forth. And so Steve Studdert stood up and basically said, I want to apologize right up front. He said, we're not going to be able to take 160 people. We will likely have to get that number down closer to 100. But he said, over the next hour or two, we're going to work through this and figure out, based on weight, because you can think about it logistically. If you're going to take a lot of supplies and food and water and personnel, and the intent was to go for 3 weeks, 21 days. But if you want to get some weight off that plane, or if you want to let all 160 people go, well, you got to decide, what are you going to cut? You're going to make some people stay back. You're going to cut off some supplies. You cut down supplies, you got to reduce the time of the mission from 21 days to, pick a number, 17 or 14 or whatever. So the grand compromise, he basically said, I want all of you to take 10 minutes in a quiet place, talk to your families if they're with you, but I want you to think and I want you to pray, and I've got to have some volunteers that you'll step out. You'll drop out. Well, I knew right away, I personally didn't need to be going there. I'm more into administration, planning, so forth, logistics. And so I had called a friend of mine to put him on alert, Dr. Rick Call, who's there right now, and he took my seat. He's been over in Haiti 16 or 17 times in the last 12 years with Healing Hands for Haiti, and I thought that's what they needed. They need Rick. He's a seasoned person. So Rick was very happy to go. So he took my anyway. Then what we did is we had to talk about a prioritization system, and this got kind of tough because Steve Studdert said, those of you who have a big ego or are complainers, you're welcome to leave right now. And you just can't have that in that kind of a rescue mission when you're there to provide assistance to those in need. And then he went on to say, one of my commandments is thou shalt be flexible, and blessed are the flexible, for they shall not break. And he really emphasized the importance of being flexible on a trip like this. And I'm really glad that he started managing our expectations right up front by saying that, because sure enough, as the night progressed, it was stressful. There were people who really had their hopes up. There are people who came in from California, from Mexico, from a couple of other states. They drove and flew to be at that meeting that night so they could get on the plane the next day. So then Brother Studdert went on to say, we have to prioritize physicians, nurses, translators, people who speak French Creole, and then construction workers. And then he also went on to say, with those of you who speak French Creole, please stand. And there were roughly 60 to 75 people who stood, and people clapped. And most of them were your 20-something-year-olds, returned missionaries, who were just eager to get back because they loved the people. I don't know exactly how many doctors and nurses went. I could find that out. I've got the flight manifest in my office, and I never really went through it. But I want to say it's around 30 or 40. And then the rest were construction workers. But a lot of the construction workers who wanted to go had to stay back, because we're at a stage right now where we're still in a lot of cleanup. There's not a lot of room right now for construction, just because the cleanup efforts are so necessary. The sanitation, as you can imagine, is terrible. It was probably terrible when you were there. It's much worse today. We got some pointers, some people who have been to Haiti in the last couple of years, like the Healing Hands for Haiti clinic in Port-au-Prince. It crumbled. We have many people who've done a lot of work in that clinic, and they stood up and they gave little pointers like, make sure you have your tetanus shot. One of the most important things you need to be concerned with are mosquitoes because of malaria. Make sure you take a net inside of your tent. And by the way, even though this was not a church supported, a church sanctioned group, it was church sponsored. As far as the church donated these duffel bags that had, pads and water purifiers and 21 meals. They call them MREs, made ready to eat. Which I hear is, it fills your stomach, but it's not very appetizing. But so they said, bring protein bars, bring a bar of ivory soap because it has a very strong scent. Put it in your pillow at night so you're smelling that and not the dead bodies when the wind blows, because there are literally bodies on the sides of the street. By now, many of those have been buried, but at that time, they're all over, from what I was told. I've seen some pictures too, and around the clinic area there are a few. So a lot of cleanup efforts are going on right now, and a lot of outstanding work, a lot of humanitarian work. I got this email from my friend Dr. Rick Call last night, and another one from a nurse named Katie Walther, and they've been just checking in and providing updates. Listen to this one that just came. Actually, this one was last Friday, so I'm going to go back just a little bit, 6 days. Rick said, I think that the news is not doing the Haitian people a favor in their reporting. They have failed to show the normal things that are back. The people are really resilient and resourceful. Life continues, and in spite of exceptional hardship, they continue to go on. It most reminds me of our pioneer heritage, getting on in spite of these life-numbing hardships. He talked about the first day that the clinic opened. Actually, this one came from a nurse, Katie Walther. The first day, there was no water available except for what they brought in to drink, bottled water. But most people had finished that. I'm just paraphrasing. Early in the morning, and by 2, 3 in the afternoon, a lot of the caregivers, nurses, doctors were feeling dehydrated. It just kind of hit and miss. Some days there's plenty of water, and other days there's not. But I understood from last night it's gotten much better with those big 5-gallon Culligan containers. So that's been very helpful. The first day there, by the way, they shipped out, going back to that big night we had at Noah's, the next day we were able to cut, I didn't tell you the rest of the story, we cut from 180 people, no, I'm sorry, 160. We cut from 160 people down to 130. So we didn't have to go all the way down to 100, but 30 people did volunteer to step off. That helped a lot as far as being able to take more supplies. The plans were to leave at 8 o'clock the next morning. I think by the time they left, it was between 2 and 3 from a couple of emails I've received. So they got in very late, and I don't know if they flew into Miami or Fort Lauderdale, but they had to fly into one of those because one of the other key success factors is you have to wait for confirmation of a slot of when to land, because the airport is just very small and the runways are in bad condition. And just a few weeks ago, there was only one airstrip. I don't know how many there are today. I know there's an Army Corps of Engineers and a lot of military folks from up in the Hill Air Force Base who went down to rebuild a couple airstrips. So I don't know what the situation is today. But a week and a half ago, there's only one airstrip. And so you had to get that slot to know exactly when to arrive. Because there was one day last week when there were roughly 100 planes that were ready and willing to go in to Port-au-Prince, and they were waiting on runways in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Orlando. So a lot of logistical stuff, a lot of communication stuff to work through. So they finally got their slot, and by the time they arrived in Port-au-Prince, it was very late Thursday night. And by the time there were a few vans that came and picked them up, and some people just walked to the clinic like a few miles away. And by the time they got settled in, it was 4 a.m. on Saturday. And then Saturday, they spent the day just trying to clear out a lot of the rubbish, whatever. There's cement, concrete, everything all over the place. And they had to just get a place where they could care for patients. So by Saturday morning, when they opened the clinic to get going to start treating patients at the Healing Hands for Haiti site, they had 174 patients that first day. And then the very next day on Sunday, it was very similar. So every day, the first 4 or 5 days, they were just inundated. Now, last night, I received another email that things had started to calm down a little bit. They talked about, my friend talked about the great organizational efforts of the United Nations in many parts of the city, maybe not all parts. He talked about how good it tasted to have cooked rice and beans late in the day by our, quote, kitchen ladies. Treated 175 patients. That was 2 days ago. But yesterday, they had 110 patients. So it has slowed down just a little bit. You've probably read, too, about the impact of some of those hospitals in South Florida. There are many hospitals in South Florida that are getting inundated right now with patients who can't be cared for over in Haiti, who had to go over to mainly Miami, but I understand Fort Lauderdale hospitals as well, that are caring for some of the more acute patients right now. One of the things that Dr. Call wrote 3 days ago, the biggest change, other than the destruction all around, is the faces of the staff. And he's talking about the volunteers. Their eyes don't smile anymore. They look the same on the outside to the casual observer, but they're not. So they're trying very hard to be pleasant. But when they're away from their patients, many of them are just emotionally drained. They're exhausted because of the types of people they're taking care of and the emotional conditions all around them. So that's been very difficult. It says, he said, your trauma is always less than others, and they are so grieved that they don't have the energy to care. On the surface, everything looks pretty much the same, but everyone lives in his or her own hell. And that's what he's referring there to the patients. Most of them are trying very hard to be positive. Most of them are trying to be hopeful, but they've just been through so much. This was like the icing on the cake when this hit, but keep in mind what they just went through 2 years ago and 5 years ago. I can't imagine having your family taken from you, your friends, and then have no place to stay, just in the streets, have your livelihood gone, and have no prospect of improvement in the foreseeable future. No water, no power, no place to call home. Whatever your lifestyle, it is what you are used to. To have that ripped from you is a crushing blow. I cannot even think about it without it growing into a wave of sadness and grief. It's kind of like pouring Coke into a warm glass. It just keeps foaming and foaming. It is so good to be here and establish a presence for the Healing Hands for Haiti again. With change and nothing ever to be the same again, Healing Hands for Haiti will again continue to contribute to the success of the disabled Haitian. I pray this catastrophe will facilitate a widespread change that will bring honest government to the people. That's been huge. A lot of corruption over there for years. And that the only thing that will bring a long-lasting answer, the application of the gospel principles in people's lives and in the moral fabric. God grant that it may be so. So they've been through a lot. You can see the objectives of the Utah Hospital Task Force. There's a website if any of you want to check in. They've got great people who are contributing on a daily basis. You can read their journals. You can see what's really going on right now. You'll get updates several times throughout the day. so that was the main objective, was provide the immediate humanitarian relief and bring Haitian children to their adoptive parents. What was interesting, going back to that organizational meeting a week ago last night, is when Steve Studdert stood up, he said, here's the plan, okay? We always have plans in life, right? But then sometimes those plans change. And that's exactly what happened. The plan was to take that jet, that 737 chartered plane, over to Haiti and then unload all those relief workers. And then we were supposed to load up 150 orphans and bring them back to Salt Lake International Airport. And then most of those orphans had already, all the paperwork had been processed and so forth. These were families like what you saw in that little commercial clip from last night. These are families who had been waiting, many of them for years, for those for their children, their adopted children. And so it was a very emotional scene, I'm sure, last night. But what's interesting is the plan was to unload all the people, the relief workers and all the supplies on Thursday night, and then Friday morning load up the orphans and come back to Salt Lake. Okay, so in reality what happened is there are delays, as some of you have read about or heard about. The Haitian government had to really slow down the process because they were finding it's that the small minority who are abusing the system and trying to, and some had good causes. I don't know a whole lot about the group from Idaho outside of what I've seen on the news, but you know, some of them seemed to think they had good intentions. They probably did have good intentions, but we're just trying to circumvent the process with the paperwork and so forth. And so anyway, because of those kinds of experiences, it has slowed down the whole process for people who have gone through the process correctly. And so it's taken longer for us to get orphans, those orphans out of the country and over here. But it's working now. I don't know exactly how many. It might have been on that news clip. I've heard different stories. I had an email that said 72. But anyway, somewhere around there. But it wasn't the 150 that we had planned for. So we just, again, have to be flexible and do the very best we can. I wanted to make sure I had a little time for Q&A, and I think we have to wrap up in 5 minutes. So just want you to know it's not doomed. Haiti is not doomed. Let's not forget the damage from the earthquake is largely concentrated in the Port-au-Prince area. That has meant a tragic loss of life, no question. But it also means there are opportunities to rebuild in other parts of the island. So there's a lot of opportunity for development in the future. You're going to hear a lot about it. We should redouble our efforts. We shouldn't just let this crisis pass without following through. I really appreciate our church for the commitment for a long-term solution. The worth of souls is great. Lift up the hands that hang down and strengthen the feeble knees. And supplicate God for a spirit of calm and peace among the people. This is what the First Presidency has encouraged us to do. There are a lot of places, organizations that are involved in relief efforts. And I have on this PowerPoint presentation, there are 25 slides here. And like I said, I'll get this over to Tyler and he can get it out to anybody who's interested. But there are local organizations. The one I refer to Healing Hands for Haiti, which is a partner of the group I represent. They're doing some great work. So is the American Red Cross, the LDS Church. What we need more than anything else right now is money. And I know I'm talking to a lot of college students who are on tight budgets. So whether it's $3 or $5 or $10, it still helps. And you can do that on Sunday. I really appreciate the chance to be here, and I think that what I'll do is, here's some national organizations as well, and there is an adoption site, and I'm sorry this didn't stand out more, but foreverychild.org, that came from Steve Studdert. There are people who have been calling me and others asking, how can we learn how to adopt these kids? And I've been told to go to that site. I've got to tell you right up front, I'm not an expert with this, but that's just a resource for those of you who are interested. And then here's some national groups that do a very good job, one in Salt Lake, one in Ogden. So we have a lot of valuable resources right here in the state of Utah. I want to thank you for your interest in the relief efforts going on in Haiti right now. I want to encourage you to continue to stay connected, stay involved, stay informed, and care about these people. Keep them in your prayers. If you have the means to do so, please donate money. Those of you who might feel that you want to go over there sometime, the goal is to have 4 planes go over there. We've only sent 1, but of course the rate limiting step is money. And it costs it costs about $2,000 per person to go over there. And although we didn't charge these volunteers, we raised money, and these folks who are going are volunteers. Some of them made donations, but not all. But you can go to that website as well, which is on this PowerPoint presentation, the Utah Hospitals Task Force, and you can get all the information you want, so that if we do send another flight, we've already told the people who have signed up that they would be next in line as far as priority. But we'll be opening again for applications when we send that second flight over. What I don't know is when will that second flight go. I've been out of contact with Steve Studdert since he left. I've been talking to like his second lieutenant, but I don't know what the plans are. It could be 3 weeks from now, it could be a couple months from now, but we'll know more probably within a week. We'll know when that second plane will be going. What questions do you have for me? Yes?
Of the many countries that provided aid to Haiti, I haven't heard anything about Cuba. Do you know whether Cuba has provided? Because I know Cuba has tremendous medical infrastructure in their next door neighbors. So what has been the relation of Cuba to this?
I don't have an answer to that. Does anybody in the room, anybody know what the role is of Cuba? I haven't heard. It's a great question. My advice is I'd go to that website, CNN. They've got so much there. It's a great resource, but I haven't looked. What else?
Isn't there an thing that you said that if you text somebody, you can just automatically send $10 or something?
You text Haiti, it's the Red Cross, just 90999.
And then that just is $10, and it's so easy to just text. And if they're in need of money the most, and that's so convenient.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That'll just show up on your phone bill. What else? Any other questions before we wrap up? I understand you have a lot of... Yes, go ahead.
So I'm planning on leaving in 2 weeks.
Oh, good.
An organization. Now, it's a 10-day trip. If they end up sending a second plane down there, do you think that there'd be a possibility of me joining up with them after the initial 10 days that I'm down there?
I wouldn't count on it. I would apply in advance, and I would explain that on the... Did you tell them that on the email?
I didn't know I was doing that.
Okay, I would do that because they're actually reading that just about every day. Jason Taylor, he's.
They closed the application.
Oh, okay, okay.
I guess I can send an email.
I would do that. I would just send an email and explain that. One of the things that I was told, because if I would have gone, I would have only gone for 3 to 4 days. But then I was told the very next day, well, be flexible. 3 or 4 days could be a week or maybe even 10 days. And so anybody going there has to be prepared to be flexible, because the logistics of getting planes in and planes out are changing all the time.
I don't know if you know this, with the bodies that they bury, do they try to identify them somehow first? Do they just do mass burials? Do people know who their family are because they're near them?
I would say all the above, but they're trying to identify, but it's not a very sophisticated process, and they're not spending a whole lot of time on that. I don't know if that process has been refined or not. I know there's been a lot of criticism levied towards the Haitian government because it's been a little bit too loose, too haphazard about the way they've gone about that. And there have been people, you've probably even heard the stories about people who are vacationing or over there on a study abroad with students, and people passing away, and parents in the United States wondering, not hearing from them. And wondering if the person's even alive or in a mass grave somewhere. So there's still hundreds of cases like that have to be sorted out. It's really sad.
Before the earthquake, the Haitian government was already taxing anyone low 26%. How is that being affected, and will that be affected in the coming months?
That's a great question. I think today, because it's so disorderly, I don't know that what's even, when it comes to compliance issues with state tax code and so forth and collecting, I think that it's more of a free-for-all right now. I wish I was more of an expert on that. It's a good question. There's so much that has to be done in the coming weeks and months as far as rebuilding infrastructure and getting some sense of order over there. But the government, many people have complained, has just been non-existent in most parts of the country. There are other parts where but they're just so limited on resources, and their impact is so limited. Even those in top positions of the government would be the first to tell you that. So, one more question.
As an alternative to flying directly to Port-au-Prince, what about going to Santo Domingo?
That's been pretty common. Yeah, I know of
like $500 in Salt Lake City.
Yes, I know of a couple doctors who did that because it was too unpredictable to go into Port-au-Prince, so they went right to the Dominican Republic. And then it's a little bit longer, you know, as far as the taxi or whatever, but many people are finding that's a good way to go. Well, it's been good to be with all of you. I appreciate your interest in this important topic. Stay engaged and keep these people in your prayers. Thank you.